Hey Karen, how
Hi,
you doing?
I'm so happy to connect with you. I've been following you and your vinyl collecting for so long, and I
Likewise.
can't wait till you get to finally come up and see the factory here.
I know, me too. It's been a few years now, I guess, since we first connected on Instagram, and I have so enjoyed following your journey, and you've been inspired by all the awesome things that you're doing with Gold Rush. So super excited to get the chance to finally chat with you today.
Yeah. Oh, this is wonderful.
Awesome. Well, I guess let's just jump right in. I wanted to first start by asking if you could just give a little introduction or background on your path in the music industry and how that inspired you to open up your own vinyl pressing plant with Gold Rush Vinyl.
Yeah, it was definitely not a path I ever thought I would take. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I think I'd own a factory.
Yeah.
But I've always been a music fan. I was like so many, I think, vinyl collectors in particular, the kid trading tapes in the hallways in school and always making mixes for people, and just really fell in love with the business side of music. I had no real talent for it personally. My sister is a trained opera singer, so I was always around music as a kid. But I really loved figuring out how the music industry worked. And so when I went to college, I had really amazing opportunity to work at Paste Magazine back in the day when it was a print publication before it became an online site, and learned so much about music licensing and marketing, and just decided to keep going on the music path. More recently, I was the head of music app partnerships at Google in California. So I helped developers like Spotify and Pandora and iHeartRadio learn how to be more successful in the Google ecosystem, but especially on mobile phones. While I was working at Google, my sister and I had a side business managing bands. And it happened at this time when vinyl was really starting to have its rise. And digital also was becoming so normal. Like everybody had access on their phones in the US to digital music, that I was starting to see the realities from my artist side of the business on what they got paid for their music. And while I was giving a presentation at Google, I had to create an infographic that showed the royalties across different formats and showed the team at Google that 100 vinyl records of revenue is equivalent to about 2.5 million YouTube streams.
Wow.
And I was thinking about that and what I'd seen from my artists, and it really started to hit me that vinyl was not only something that was becoming so important to fans, but it was becoming really critical to musicians. How I ended up starting my own factory, though, is one of my bands had a kind of sudden indie hit and needed some more vinyl made. And I discovered just how difficult it is to get made, and how difficult, particularly this was like, 2012, 2013, when this started happening. There was just no capacity anywhere to get it made. And when I tried to do a rush order, nobody would take my order. And it started me down this curiosity path of, why is vinyl so backed up? What's it take to become a vinyl manufacturer? And very long story short, now I can drive a forklift, and we've got a really amazing team of 10 people here in Austin at Gold Rush Vinyl who manufacture vinyl right here in America. And I'm really proud of the work that they've done, especially during the pandemic when vinyl has been so critical for musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of touch on that a little bit later. But hearing you mention that statistic on how 100 vinyl record sales is equivalent to 2.5 million Spotify streams, I mean, that's just unreal. I mean, that's almost hard to believe that there's such a disparity there between the two.
Yeah, and it was the hardest part of my job, toggling the line between working with artists directly and working in tech, is I can see the realities on the tech side of how hard it is to maintain these servers and these, ingestion engines that take all of this music in and translate the side. I can understand that side of it, but I also understand the realities for the creator who,
right.
Need this money to live on, and have, as a result of just what streaming royalties look like, been forced into touring more and getting more creative with merch and licensing and doing other things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I can only imagine that it was no small undertaking to open up a facility like this. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in opening up a record pressing plant?
Oh man, I always joke about I was so naive. I didn't know quite what was going to go into it, and I think that that was for the best because had I known how hard it was going to be, I probably wouldn't have done it. Um, there's a couple different challenges. One is obviously the financing of it. It's an expensive endeavor to open a new factory and to procure the machinery and get banks to trust you, and that took a long time, and it still does. I still have to work on that all the time to earn more trust from lenders and from investors. And I've maintained 100% ownership of the company. That's been really hard to do when you have to go out and raise a lot of money. So that's been super challenging. The second piece is the manufacturing itself. It's these record pressing machines are super temperamental. Some days we come in and they're running great, and then on the night shift the temperature drops in Austin and there's more humidity or less humidity, and it changes the chemistry of the records. So that's really difficult, like learning the actual manufacturing of vinyl. Been really lucky that so many people in this industry, if I pick up the phone and call them, will talk to me for hours on end about their experiences in vinyl. People are really generous with their feedback, their advice, especially for someone who's a little younger coming into a more established part of the market. The best part of this has been our team, like retaining such great people at this company. I'm so proud of the culture that we've built here, how much the teammates want to learn and tell me how to make the factory better. That's been, I know a lot of companies struggle with that, but when you open a vinyl record factory in Austin, it's a little easier to attract jobs than maybe semiconductor manufacturing. So,
Well, on that note, as a native Texan, Houstonian, I've been curious, why did you choose Austin as the location for your plant? Because you previously were in California, is that right?
Yeah, so I was in California. I've lived in Atlanta and Boston and London and New York. I've moved around a lot, and it was funny that whole time I had an Austin keychain on my key ring, and all my friends were like, "You have no family there. You've never lived there. Why do you have that?" I just really always I was coming for South by Southwest for years before I moved here, and I always left just feeling like invigorated in a way that I hadn't before I got here. And the more time I was spending in Austin over the years, I just felt like it was the perfect place for something like this. I mean, Texas is such a business-friendly state, especially for female entrepreneurs like myself. The cost of doing business is so much cheaper than other states. They really wanted this factory here. I was able to connect with the Austin mayor's office and the governor's office before I moved here to explain what I wanted to do. And they just helped me really land here as a stranger in a new town and find the right people. And it's been a wonderful city to live in personally. And the music culture here is so much richer than I thought it was. I knew that there's Willie Nelson and the Armadillo World Headquarters legacy, but I didn't realize how many pockets there are here in town of really cool music in genres that I wouldn't have thought for Austin, like metal and Latin, dance, EDM. Like there's every day when we have clients come to the factory, it's something different, some totally different genre. And that's really neat about Austin.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I love coming up to Austin. Like you said, it's obviously such a great music town, but there's just so much to it. The food, the venues, the nature, I mean, everything about the city. And there's so many great record stores too. It's a great city to go digging in.
I live now in walking distance to Waterloo Records, and it's so dangerous for my budget. I have to, right now in COVID, you have to have an appointment in advance, and it's better for me and worse for them that's the case, because I used to be walking all the time. I'm just gonna get one.
And Waterloo is usually my first stop when I just head into town, go downtown and hit up Waterloo.
Yeah, and even, I mean, the community here is so wonderful. Like stores like End of an Ear and Breakaway Records, like anytime we call them and need advice, or our clients are bringing their records there, they find such a supportive community. And that's awesome, because I think for so long when I would go into vinyl stores, it was like a scene out of High Fidelity where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get they're gonna make fun of me for not getting the coolest thing in the bin. I remember being in Amoeba Records in San Francisco, and the cashier complimented my crate digging find, and I was like, that's the best compliment I've ever gotten in my life.
Oh, that's awesome. No, that's so true. Well, you touched a little bit on COVID earlier, and so I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because I know you also mentioned about how when you were first getting into this idea of opening up a pressing plant and what a backlog there was and how hard it was to get records. And I know that that's been kind of one of the things that really sets your company apart is your quick turnaround times. Obviously we've seen supply chain issues and COVID-19 restrictions and those sorts of things affect businesses really all around the world and all different industries. So I'm just curious if you'd had any impact from that or had to adapt your operations in any way in the last year.
We have, and I'll tell you, I'm glad we can have a conversation about that and you understand that supply chains have been messed up. It's been really hard for our staff to explain that to customers when we have so boldly advertised our fast turnarounds. I mean, prior to COVID, for 3 years, we held average turnaround times 6 weeks when most plants were doing 12 to 16. And, we were first forced to shut down by the order of our county and city. When we came back, these machines, they're huge pieces of equipment. If you don't operate them, they're very grumpy when you turn them back on. And we started to discover just problem after problem when we felt like, all right, we're back on a good path, just really struggling with that. Mm-hmm. Then we had to, sorry, someone was at the door. Sorry about that. Then we had supply chain issues where, plastic, for example, is being held up. And there's all kinds of articles about, just for how much people are consuming from Asia in particular is making transit of goods difficult. So while I might have everything I need to press the record here, I might not have the plastic to press the vinyl. And it's been really challenging. I think especially because my team and I really, at the heart of what we do, like our mission statement has nothing to do with vinyl. Our mission is to help musicians earn more money from their music. In a time like this where so many musicians have been left high and dry, without tours, without concerts, without support from, their cities and states, it's been really hard not to be able to execute on what we know we can do. And we're making positive strides towards, getting back to our fast turnaround times, thanks to the hard work of the team. But it meant, going to 24-hour day shifts, working weekends, adding more staff, and just really trying to get it all right again.
Yeah, that's amazing that the team really sounds like it really came together to put in the work to do the best that you can through a situation that you really don't have very much control over.
It's and it's been really humbling to me, somebody who as a business owner, you're trying to control so much as you can with the story, the business plan, the models. This is the first time in my life I haven't had mentors to call on to say,
right,
what's the playbook for this? They're saying, I don't know, it's new to me too. So it's taught me to cede a lot more control and also to just get ideas from the team and trust them. And I'm so lucky that they all show up and we've done so safely. Our facility is really big and we have a tiny team. So we were able to do it really safely. Yeah, do it really safely. And that was, in hindsight, a real blessing to have all that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I'm not sure how many people know or realize is that Gold Rush Vinyl is one of only 2 woman-owned and operated vinyl pressing plants in the world, which is really amazing. So I was wondering, what your experience has been like in this industry as a woman. Have you faced any challenges trying to navigate it? And how important do you think it is to create an inclusive environment and try to provide more opportunities for women?
Creating jobs generally is the most fulfilling part of what I do, but creating jobs for young women in particular is just, if that's all I did all day long, it'd be great. I love watching, and our staff too, what I try to do is give everybody as much freedom as, I joke, I'm throw you off the diving board and then ask, hey, can you swim? Just because I think people are so much more capable of creative thinking and taking on responsibilities than we often think, especially when you're making new hires. So it's been really rewarding. As a woman, it cuts both ways, and it always has in my music industry career. I definitely have had the stereotypical kind of stories of being, sexually harassed or treated kind of differently. Even now people come in and think I'm the receptionist and then are embarrassed when they find out I'm the owner. But in the flip side of that, I know that a lot of the opportunities that I've had in my career have been because I'm a woman and I get to stand out a bit more. I'm going into a bank and saying I want to start a vinyl record factory. They're like, we don't have a lot of women that own factories. We should give this a look, you know? And sometimes, you know, being underestimated too as a woman can be a real competitive advantage. I talk to a lot of women I know about that then you get to really surprise people and command the kind of attention and trust rather than demanding it. So, you know, it's changing. I've seen it change a lot in the music industry in the past couple of years, which has been really positive. And to see more women coming into the vinyl industry, I love what Women in Vinyl is doing, to showcase all of the different pieces of, you know, what the vinyl community is and what the music community is. So it's I think an exciting time to be a female-owned company and to think about growing my team.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like there's so many different sides to the industry that people just might not even realize exist. I mean, I've certainly learned a lot and just been exposed to a lot of new things from reading Women in Vinyl. And so it's really interesting to kind of hear your perspective on that. So,
and the more too, like we work with female cutting engineers who are so good at their craft. I hate to even say that they're female cutting engineers, because they're just great cutting engineers, or, you know, people that we come across in the industry. Just seeing the level of talent and also the amount of attention being given to training and to internships and things like that for women is really a positive, because it helps blend our team out too. Half of our customers are women, so it's nice when your team can reflect that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So something that I think is really unique and awesome about Gold Rush Vinyl is the fact that you also have your own monthly vinyl club. So I'd love to know more kind of how the idea for that came about, and what does the club offer?
Yeah, so we started thinking about a vinyl club probably 2 summers ago, and COVID forced us really to act on it. Because we realized, you know, as a manufacturer, once I have a record kind of on my presses and going, it's for us to make a couple extra when we know we have an audience for them is really not a huge expense. And certainly in manufacturing efficiencies, it's great. We just run an extra 100 records,
right?
You know, but really, we also realized we sit on a lot of great music. I hear great albums before anybody's heard them, because we get the files so far in advance. And so it felt like a cool way for us not only to show off like some of these indie artists that might not get as much retail opportunity, but also then to find a way to pay them too for some extra records. If we can help them, you know, get 100 more records to subscribers and pay them for that and cover their manufacturing costs, it's really kind of a win-win for everyone. It's been super fun for us. You know, we're starting to grow it more now that we've pilot tested it and, you know, got a better website up. But for $28 a month plus tax, it's 2 records instead of 1. A lot of vinyl clubs will be 1 record for that price. Instead, we're giving you 2, and you know, 1 is a featured album that our editorial staff of, you know, the team here really loves. The other one is also one we love, but is a little bit more towards the genre preferences of the vinyl club member. So I hope between the 2 of them, you discover something new you love.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's such a great value, and it sounds like it really ties back into your mission too, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, it is. And we're looking now at, you know, what else can we do beyond that to help musicians, you know, find new audiences. And, you know, my background is business. I know how to do that well. I don't know how to play. I can play an instrument very well. I know you're on a quest to learn drums and it's neat for me and the team to think about what skills do we have that we can use to help people who are clearly very talented.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, what are some of your favorite records that you've pressed over the years?
Oh man, we had a really special project that was like a dream project for me. Kristen Chenoweth was getting ready to have a limited run Broadway show, and our dear friend Shelley Wright put us in touch with her team, and they had been told they're not going to be able to get the records in time. The show was in, I think, 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And we said, if you bring it here, we'll get it done. And the record had Kristen singing with Dolly Parton and Ariana Grande and Jennifer Hudson. It was just, it's called For the Girls. So for us to be able to press that here and rush it to her to have at her Broadway show was so amazing. She was so generous too to us and sent such a nice video back. we opened up the New York Times style section that weekend, our arts and living section, and it was a picture of Kristen Chenoweth hugging her vinyl on stage. And it was just such a great moment for us of, you know, honoring the commitment we made to her to say, yes, we'll get the records there in time. The music and message being so closely aligned with what we're doing here. And she's just a phenomenal talent and person. So that was a really special record that we pressed.
Yeah, I remember seeing you post about it whenever you did that, and it seemed like such a cool project.
My friend texted me, she's like, Kristen Chenoweth is thanking you by name on Instagram. My sister being a Broadway, you know, an opera singer, we went to lots of Broadway shows growing up. So that was really special to share with my family too.
I bet. So, you know, as I know, you know, vinyl sales have been continuing to grow and grow year after year. And in this past year, they even outsold CDs for the first time since, I believe, 1986, which is pretty
wild. Yeah.
a little while. So with my parting question, I just wanted to ask you what your outlook is on the future of the vinyl industry, and what role do you see Gold Rush Vinyl playing in that?
Well, I'll tell you, I never have to answer anymore. Is vinyl a thing? Like when I first started circulating this idea, especially when I was leaving Google, people were like, are you sure you want to do that? Vinyl. I do think, yeah, the sustained growth of it, and especially in this year where people had to be a lot more thoughtful about where they were spending their money, the fact that vinyl grew so much really, I think, has put a lot of the skeptics and naysayers on, you know, in their place, which is great. I think long-term, we will see it, you know, eventually taper off in terms of growth, but there's such a community of young people buying vinyl, not listening to it, who are really uneducated on record players, on how to care for their records, why so much care goes into it. I mean, we get emails in from customers once in a while of bands asking us about what record player they, you know, we'd recommend, or, you know, what they should look for in a vinyl pressing. There's still a lot of education there. I think if we can all as a community open up that market more and make it especially a lot more inviting to young people who aren't necessarily audiophiles, but like have an interest in it, it's going to do such wonders for the industry. You know, I think back to, I collected vinyl records for 10 years before I owned a record player. And when I did, I got a Crosley, and audiophiles teased me, but I wasn't ready to make a huge commitment into a nice turntable. And as I got older and really loved the hobby of collecting vinyl, I have so much vinyl at my house, as you might imagine one does when you own a vinyl record factory. But, you know, then I could invest in real beautiful pieces that, you know, and I knew how to care for my record player. So I would love to see the industry be better about welcoming in new people to this wonderful, amazing community and hobby. And I think that'll make the market continue to just explode and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And sounds like we had a pretty similar journey, because I was buying vinyl before I had a turntable. And then the first turntable was, you know, a very basic turntable that I'd probably get teased about if people knew, you know. I think you hit on the key word is you weren't ready to invest, because that's how I treated it too. I mean, vinyl as a hobby, it is an investment, you know, it's not a cheap thing to get into. And I always tell people, like, you know, start out slow, buy an inexpensive player to start with, you know, if you're not sure, like, that's okay. Like, there's no right or wrong way to collect records. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with starting out that way. And then I have, you know, grown and grown over time, obviously my collection, but also my interest in equipment, and just kind of starting to, you know, dip my toes deeper into that water now. But it's, you know, been a process, but a really fun journey, you know, just over time. So.
Oh, it is. And, you know, I collected at first, I was just going to flea markets and buying ones that had like nostalgic value to me. And then started buying, you know, going to record store day, getting the list, right? And like, ones now, and then learning what Discogs was, and I could put my records in, you know, it's a process, and it's really fun when people encourage newbies, if you will, to join the community.
Totally agree. Well, Caren, thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a treat getting to chat with you, and I'm just so excited to, you see what the future holds for you and for Gold Rush. So
thank you. I'm so glad to finally meet you. Like I said, that's the fun thing about this community. I'm like, oh, I know these people. But we've never been able to swap stories. And yeah, thanks for all you do for the community too. And I hope we get to have you up here to see the factory in action soon.